This is Go Against the Tide TV, and joining us today is one of the most respected voices in transatlantic security, General Ben Hodges, having served at as the commanding general of the United States Army Europe. He brings very much experience and perspective on the challenges facing us today. General, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for the privilege.
And we want to talk about the new defense security strategy of the United States. You have called the strategy a giant middle finger to Europe. As a former commander of ground forces in Europe, how do you assess the general assumptions of the new strategy?
Well, the biggest problem for me is that this strategy seems to put European democracies as somehow the biggest threat, and it never mentions Russia as a threat at all. It undermines the structures that have worked for decades. NATO, for example, being at the center of American security policy and strategic thinking, this is being severely challenged. It talks about spheres of influence where the United States would have primacy, dominance over everything in the Western Hemisphere, including Greenland, Central and South America. And so I don't know how this helps the United States in any way, and it damages the relationships we have built up over decades with allies and partners, which also, by the way, gives us access to bases and important intelligence sharing. So it seems that this new national security strategy is very short-sighted and damages all the things that have worked so well for since the end of the war.
You said that the strategy places an emphasis on the Western Hemisphere. Does this mean sort of new division of the world, and does it mean that the US can let go of activities in other regions?
That's a great question. That's certainly what it implies. It doesn't specifically say that Russia can have Europe and that the Chinese can have the Indo-Pacific, but the way it's written and the way the United States is acting right now, the way our government is acting right now, vis-a-vis Venezuela and Greenland, that certainly seems to be the implication. Now, of course, the president is also threatening to strike Iran for what they're doing to protesters there. So he's not abandoning interests in other parts of the world. So it's just not clear to me how this new strategy will play out in Europe, the Middle East, or in Africa or the Indo-Pacific.
The strategy suggests that Europe must deal with Russia on its own. How might that affect US forces in Europe, and is Europe ready to take responsibility for its defense without the United States?
Well, in a practical sense, Europe absolutely should be ready. I mean, Ukraine has stopped Russia for the last several years and given time to European countries to modernize and build up their own capabilities, exactly what Poland has been doing. And if you add together the combined economies, technology, wealth, industry, and capabilities of all of the nations of the EU, plus Norway, plus UK, plus Ukraine, plus Turkey, it dwarfs Russia. So you can see why the United States, why many Americans expect that Europeans can defend themselves. But at the same time, it's in the interest of the United States that we stay engaged here. We need the bases that our allies give us. We need the intelligence sharing that our allies give to us. And of course, Europe is America's biggest trading partner. So it's in our interest that Europe is stable and secure and prosperous. So I think what we have in Europe now, it's less than 100,000 troops total. That's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, special operators, less than 100,000 for all of Europe. That's nothing. That barely fills up a major football stadium. So I don't I don't know. It would not be smart for me to make a prediction about what the president might do regarding troops in Europe, but I think it would be a mistake for us to reduce what we have in Europe. We would be the biggest loser in such a decision.
Can we say that the era of transatlantic alliance is coming to an end?
No, I'm not going to say that. Look, we have been a good ally to everyone in NATO since 1949. We have spent zillions of dollars helping to protect Europe as well as our own interests in Europe. And this has been going on for decades. I think it's premature after 1 year of the second Trump administration to say it's all over. I mean, I think that certainly this administration is causing damage, and the fact that people, journalists and politicians and members of parliaments are asking about this. But I think that now is the time for leaders to say, hold on, what can Europe be doing to make sure that the United States doesn't leave? I mean, we invested a lot of time and money and people helping Europe after the war. Now maybe is a time for Europe to help the United States, to save us from ourselves. Don't just sit there and be a witness to a terrible decision. I think political leaders in Poland and other European countries understand this and are working on this.
How can Europe help United States to, as you said, save from yourself?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you should take every opportunity to hold us accountable, to live up to our own law, to live up to our own constitution. Challenge us when we don't do it. I mean, frankly, Europeans are good at criticizing American policy in the past. Don't stop now. You should challenge us when we don't live up to our own talking points. Number one. Number two, you have leverage. You're not just innocent bystanders. The United States needs markets in Europe. We need access. There are things that European governments could do to remind us that you are important to us, that Europe is important to us. And I think I would also say stop this flattery, this the way that many leaders have treated President Trump as if he's royalty. He's the elected president of the United States, and in 3 years he'll be gone. So I would I hope European leaders will rediscover their own self-confidence.
Critics of the strategy say that it moves away from promoting values, democracy, in favor of transactional approach. Do you agree with this, and what are the consequences?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's exactly what it looks like, and it's discouraging because the nations that have been such good friends to us and vice versa are now wondering what has happened to the United States. The United States was never perfect. Nobody ever thought it was perfect, but people had a high expectation of us because of our Constitution, because of our values that most people recognize were an important part of our life. And so now the administration seems to me to be on a much more transactional approach to how they interact with other nations, and I don't think this is making America great. This is going to make America alone.
My feeling, there is a difference between how the strategy treats the whole world and Europe, because in Europe it is written that they want to promote something don't know if it's democracy, but there are points like cultivating resistance to Europe's current trajectory, building up the healthy nations of Central, Eastern, Southern Europe, and so on. So there is some approach to change the nations of Europe in a way that the U.S. administration wants it. What do you think about this?
No, well, what I think is that Polish people should have a government that they want, not what somebody else wants. Germans, the Finns, the Danes, the Italians, people, you don't have to give in to that. I mean, you're a strong democratic society there in Poland. You have your own traditions and cultures. You have your own media. You have your own government. So I find it appalling that the U.S. government is sticking its nose into how other allied countries, friendly countries, are doing things, whether it's in governance or media or even healthcare. So I think this is where, ignore it. Ignore it.
Let's talk about some events that are effect of this strategy, I think. How do you assess the capture of Nicolas Maduro? Is this the beginning of some regime changes at Washington's will?
Well, certainly nobody is going to cry about the departure of Mr. Maduro and his wife. So that's set that aside. But that's not what this operation was about. This operation was about oil. It was not about drugs. That was a pretext. This was about the administration implementing this national security strategy, demonstrating that we can dominate everything. We can do whatever we want, regardless of what the law says, regardless of anything else. And now the administration believes that they can control all of Venezuela's oil, which are reported to be the largest deposit in the world. Of course, there's a few problems with this. You and your audience have already seen that American oil companies did not enthusiastically embrace this because of a massive amount of investment that would be required to make that even profitable. Plus, some companies have said that Venezuela already stole or they lost equipment and resources when Venezuela nationalized these American companies. So they want to be paid back for that first, and the administration is saying they're not. So, and there's several problems with the law about who actually is running Venezuela. That oil, by international law, belongs to the people of Venezuela, not the United States. And so it seems to me that this plan by the administration, they did not do a very good job of thinking through to the other end what happens after Maduro's gone. They did not change the regime, obviously. Everybody is still there except for Maduro. And you've got the military, you've got police, you've got gangs, you've got all sorts of different groups. And so this is a mess. And when the president said he's not scared of boots on the ground, well, they won't be his boots. If they're talking about putting soldiers in there to protect his oil infrastructure, I think that would be a catastrophe, and we would end up in a nasty conflict that was our own making and unnecessary. So I don't know what comes next. Certainly, they talk about Cuba, and then obviously Greenland.
Yes, they talk a lot about Greenland. Our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Radosław Sikorski, said that he wants to know what Congress have to say in this matter. Do you think that Congress would allow Trump to invade Greenland, or maybe Trump will give the order without Congress approval?
So, of course, Minister Sikorsky is right. The Congress has a very important role here of oversight. They're a co-equal branch of the government to the president, but they have been very slow to react in the first year to President Trump's priorities and actions, many of which people believe are illegal. Um, Finally, though, it does seem that this week and last week, there were members of Congress that were saying this is ridiculous. Do not keep talking about Greenland or that you're going to take Greenland. This is a ridiculous policy that would have only negative outcomes for the United States. So it feels like some Republicans are finally rediscovering their backbone and are starting to push back. And I would say I'm hopeful that more and more Republican members of Congress are maybe they're not as scared of President Trump as they were last year. And so they're starting to realize that they're going to have to answer to their voters here in November, since this is a year from midterm election. So I think we're going to see more pushback from the Congress. So certainly they should be. Now, there's a problem also. This, in my view, would be illegal for the administration to direct the military to seize Greenland, in any sort of military operation, because in the U.S. Constitution, Article 6, a treaty is a signed treaty, such as the Washington Treaty, which created NATO, is the law of the land in America. So an attack on a NATO ally would be a violation of our own law. And so here's where the military should be saying, absolutely not. They're not going to do this. Now, my guess is that these kind of debates and discussions are going on now. I don't know that, of course, but I would imagine that that's the case. And I certainly hope that the military would not move forward with what constitutes an illegal order. And then, of course, most sensible people recognize that this is totally unnecessary. This is not about security. There are no Russian and Chinese vessels all over Greenland. This is about this administration wanting to dominate the hemisphere, to do what it wants, and perhaps because they believe that there are a lot of critical mineral resources underneath the ice there, and they want access to it. This is all totally unnecessary, because the Danes and the Greenlanders have said, of course, the U.S. could bring troops back to Greenland. We used to have thousands of American troops there. They left because we don't need them anymore. There was no threat. The Danes and the Greenlanders have welcomed American mining companies to come in and exploit what might be under the ice. So I think if we continue down this path, this would constitute an enormous own goal by the United States, damaging relationships and potentially damaging the most successful alliance in the history of the world.
Do you believe that U.S. military would refuse to carry out such, as you said, illegal order?
I believe that if I was there, I would refuse to do it.
Why is Trump doing it? What he gains if he can have access to, as you said, all those minerals under ice? He can have troops in there. Why is he going against alliances?
Well, I think he has either never really understood or cared about what NATO means for the United States. I know recently the U.S. ambassador to NATO was speaking with a very senior Polish defense official, and the Polish defense official was explaining how much Poland was already doing to modernize, and how much American equipment was being purchased by Poland for Polish armed forces. This was a total surprise to the U.S. ambassador to NATO. I mean, that's incredible that he was not aware. And so, of course, as soon as he heard this, he communicates back to Washington, hey, Poland's doing all these things. We don't want to pull troops out, or we don't want to punish them for some reason. So there's just a terrible lack of understanding by people in the administration about what NATO means for us, why it helps the United States. All the bases like Ramstein, or the naval bases in Spain and Italy and Greece, the air base in Turkey. This is for us. They're not there to protect Greeks and Turks. They're there. This is for us to project power. What Poland allows the United States to do there, that's our contribution to NATO. So I think the administration just doesn't care or understand this, and that's why this strategy minimizes the importance of NATO, and why I think the president thinks he can do whatever he wants, and we're going to take Greenland. It's ours. It's ours. Why the Danes have no claim to it? I mean, the lack of understanding of geography and history is it's embarrassing, but it's dangerous.
Yeah, Trump said that the fact that 500 years ago they landed on a boat there, it doesn't mean that it is theirs. He also said that the defense of Greenland is too doxlets, I think, just in the recent times. So these are very strange comments coming from
strange, yes,
president. What would you advise? How should Poland find its place in relations with the U.S. in this new reality?
Well, I would
return to European defense projects, maybe the so-called mini NATO, Poland, the Baltics, and the Scandinavian states against the Russian.
I think that what I said earlier is that the nations, our allies, should take a longer-term view of the United States. Look, we have been through ups and downs. It's never been perfect. We've had difficult times in the U.S. and we've had great times in the U.S. And eventually, we always come out of it. We've got too many good people to allow us to continue going down this terrible path. So I would say, have a long view. Don't give up on us yet. Hold us accountable. But also, I mean, Poland is a sovereign country, and it's part of NATO, and it's part of the European Union, and it has good neighbors. I think if Poland works with its neighbors, its allies, and its partners, you're not helpless. And I think you have to demand respect as well. And this is where I think the EU can play a very important role from an economic standpoint of parity, getting good trade for trade negotiations with the United States, and to create a new military structure, to me would be a colossal waste of time. I mean, remember the French kicked NATO out back in the 60s. The Turks and the Greeks are always threatening to fight each other. The Germans were very unhappy with the United States when we invaded Iraq. The UK and France were unhappy with us when we intervened in the Suez crisis. So I think this alliance is able to absorb a lot of challenges, and I think it's a time for cool, confident leadership, but for nations to demand respect. Don't roll over.
Last time when we talked, you said that the US will not survive if the situation remains as it is now, but you were optimistic that there will be more good-willing people. Did your opinion, have your opinion changed?
So November is our midterm election. And, the whole system is based on elections being able to, this is how we self-correct. And in democracy, it's not ballet. It is like rugby football all the time. And so this year, I think it's going to be very important People are going to be, people are energized to get good candidates in the elections at all the different levels. And of course, most of your viewers know that elections are run by the state, not the federal government, but at the state level. And so I imagine there will be attempts to disrupt or influence these elections, but this is what's at stake. And I think if people believe that the federal government or that their representatives are not doing things for their best interests, then they will get voted out of office. And if there are policies that are bad for America, then they will lose in that election. I think I am optimistic that we're going to see a different outcome at the end of this year.
Thank you very much, General. It's always an honor and pleasure to talk with you. Thank you for sharing your expertise with our viewers. That was General Ben Hodges, former commander of U.S. Army Europe.
Thank you for the privilege.